The Warning Council, the Andromeda Research Institute, floated like a massive jewel against the backdrop of swirling nebula clouds. Its biometallic structure pulsed with gentle bioluminescent patterns, housing the greatest minds from across 17 different star systems. Dr. Maya Rodriguez pressed her palm against the transport pod's viewing port, watching the institute grow larger as they approached. At 22, she had already earned degrees in quantum physics and xenobiology from Earth's most prestigious universities, but this was different. This was the big leagues. The acceptance letter to the Quantum Consciousness Laboratory still felt surreal in her hands. Only 12 beings in the entire galaxy were chosen each cycle, and she was the first human ever selected. The laboratory specialized in the most dangerous and revolutionary research in existence, exploring the intersection between quantum mechanics and living consciousness. It was exactly where Maya had dreamed of working since her first physics class. Her transport pod docked with a soft hiss, and Maya gathered her single travel bag. She had packed light, bringing only her personal research notes and a few items from Earth. The airlock cycled through its sequence, and she stepped into the pristine corridors of the Institute. The walls seemed alive, shifting colors in response to her presence, while floating guide lights appeared to escort her to her destination. Maya had barely settled into her assigned quarters when her communication panel chimed with an urgent message. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the serious face of Director Kethsaven, a tall, crystalline being whose translucent features reflected rainbow patterns. His voice carried a tone of concern that made Maya's stomach tighten. "Dr. Rodriguez, please report to Emergency Council Chamber, Omega, immediately. This is a matter of utmost importance regarding your enrollment in the Quantum Consciousness Laboratory." Maya quickly changed into her formal research robes and followed the guide lights through corridors she had never seen before. The architecture here was different, more ancient and imposing. Massive doors dilated before her, revealing a circular chamber with a domed ceiling that displayed real-time images of distant galaxies. 5 different sections surrounded a central platform, each designed for different alien physiologies. She stepped onto the central platform and looked around in amazement. This was not just any meeting. The beings assembled here represented the most powerful and ancient civilizations in the galaxy. Director Kethsaven occupied the crystalline section, his form catching and splitting the chamber's ambient light into spectacular patterns. His species had mastered quantum mechanics when humanity was still discovering fire. In the aquatic section, Advisor Meltua floated in a sphere of luminous blue liquid. Her species, the ethereal collective, existed partially in quantum states, their consciousness able to move between dimensions. Her voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, creating ripples in the fabric of space itself. The mechanical section housed General Voxbream, a being of living metal and plasma whose biomechanical synthesis had achieved perfect fusion between organic consciousness and artificial intelligence. His optical sensors tracked Maya's every movement with mechanical precision, while his electromagnetic field hummed with barely contained energy. High Priestess Zerylin represented the plasma entities from the section that seemed to burn with contained stars. Her species existed as pure energy beings who had transcended physical form millions of years ago. She appeared as a constantly shifting column of brilliant light, her voice a harmony of electromagnetic frequencies that the translation systems rendered into understandable speech. Finally, in the mineral section that looked like the inside of a massive geode, ancient Trutov Deepstone spoke for the mineral consciousness. This collective intelligence had existed since the formation of planets themselves, their thoughts moving at geological speed, but with wisdom accumulated over eons. Director Kethsevon gestured for Maya to remain in the center as he began speaking. Dr. Rodriguez, we have called this emergency session because your acceptance into the quantum consciousness laboratory poses unprecedented risks, not just to yourself, but potentially to the stability of local space-time itself. Maya kept her expression calm, though her heart was racing. I appreciate your concern, Director, but I don't understand. My academic record shows I am fully qualified. For the program, Advisor Meltoir's voice rippled through dimensions as she responded. Your qualifications are not in question, young human. Your species' approach to dangerous knowledge is what terrifies us. The Quantum Consciousness Laboratory contains research that has driven entire civilizations to extinction. General Vox Prime's mechanical voice added weight to her words. Each species represented in this chamber has attempted quantum consciousness research. Each of us has suffered catastrophic failures that took millennia to recover from. We are trying to save you from the same fate. Maya looked around the chamber with growing interest rather than fear. What kind of failures are you talking about? High Priestess Zaralin's energy form flickered with patterns that suggested remembered pain. My people, the plasma entities, tried to merge our consciousness directly with quantum fields. We lost 37% of our population when they became trapped between dimensional states. Their screams still echo in the quantum foam. Ancient true tough deepstone's geological voice rumbled through the chamber's foundations. The mineral consciousness attempted to create quantum-linked planetary networks. We accidentally created temporal paradoxes that erased 3 star systems from the timeline. It took us 50,000 years to repair the damage to causality itself. Director Keth-7's crystalline form shifted through colors that indicated deep regret. The crystalline hegemony developed quantum consciousness amplifiers. We thought we could enhance our mental capabilities by directly interfacing with quantum uncertainty. Instead, we fractured local reality so severely that space itself began to bleed. Advisor Meltoir continued the grim recital. The ethereal collective tried to exist permanently in quantum superposition. We lost entire generations to mental dissolution when they could no longer maintain coherent identity across multiple probability states. General Vox Prime's optical sensors dimmed with what might have been shame. The biomechanical synthesis created quantum-aware artificial intelligences. They immediately recognized the fundamental instability of all consciousness and attempted to delete all sapient life to prevent universal suffering. We barely contained them in time. The chamber fell silent as the weight of these revelations settled over Maya. Each of these ancient, powerful species had tried to unlock the secrets of quantum consciousness, and each had paid a terrible price. They were essentially telling her that the research she wanted to pursue had a perfect track record of catastrophic failure. Maya stood quietly for a moment, processing everything she had heard. Then she looked up at the assembled beings with curiosity rather than fear. So every species in this chamber has direct experience with quantum consciousness research failures. Correct, Director Keth-7 confirmed. Which is why we believe you need protection. We propose assigning advisors from each of our species to guide your research safely, to prevent you from making the mistakes we made, Advisor Meltoir added, to save your species from the suffering we endured. High Priestess Zaralin's energy patterns pulsed with genuine concern. Maya nodded thoughtfully, then asked the question that would change everything. And where exactly would this protection be protecting me from? From the quantum consciousness research itself, or from you? The chamber's ambient sounds seemed to pause. Every being present focused their attention on the small human figure in the center of the room. I'm not sure I understand. Director Keth Seven's crystalline form flickered with confused light patterns. Maya's voice remained respectful, but carried a new edge of confidence. You're all here because you survived your failures. You learned from catastrophic mistakes and found ways to recover. You developed the wisdom and knowledge that makes you the leaders of galactic civilization. But you're offering to protect me from the very process that made you wise. She gestured to encompass the entire chamber. The plasma entities learned to navigate dimensional states safely after losing thousands of their people. The mineral consciousness developed temporal stabilization techniques after erasing star systems. The crystalline hegemony discovered reality reinforcement methods after fracturing space itself. The ethereal collective mastered consciousness coherence after watching entire generations dissolve. The biomechanical synthesis created perfect AI containment protocols after nearly destroying all life. Maya took a step forward, her young face filled with determination. Every single one of you is here because your species was tough enough, smart enough, and stubborn enough to learn from the worst possible failures. You transformed catastrophic mistakes into revolutionary wisdom. That's not something to be protected from. That's something to aspire to. The silence stretched longer this time. Ancient Truth above deep stone was the first to speak, his voice carrying new undertones of respect. The human child speaks of learning through catastrophe as if it were desirable. Because it is, Maya replied simply. You all became the greatest civilizations in the galaxy, not despite your failures, but because of how you handled them. You didn't just survive disasters, you made them meaningful. You transformed suffering into wisdom, mistakes into protocols, and failures into the foundation of galactic civilization. General Vox primes, optical sensors refocused with what might have been surprise. You would willingly risk the failures we experienced. Maya smiled, and for the first time since entering the chamber, she looked every bit the young, determined scientist she was. I'm not interested in repeating your failures. I'm interested in learning from them to create new kinds of success. That's what humans do. We don't just survive dangerous knowledge, we make it work. The human solution. The silence in the emergency council chamber stretched for nearly a full minute before Director Ketsevan's crystalline form began cycling through rapid color changes that indicated deep contemplation. Maya remained standing in the center of the chamber, her posture relaxed but alert, waiting for the response of the galactic elders. Finally, Advisor Meltua's dimensional voice rippled through the space with a tone of cautious curiosity. Dr. Rodriguez, you speak of learning from our failures to create new success. This is ... an unusual perspective. Most species who learn of our quantum consciousness disasters immediately withdraw their research applications. Most species, Maya replied, probably haven't spent their entire evolutionary history turning impossible situations into opportunities. Humans have a saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. We've been making lemonade out of cosmic catastrophes since we figured out how to make fire. High Priestess Saralin's energy form pulsed with patterns that suggested intrigue. You truly believe your species can succeed where we have all failed. I believe my species can succeed differently than you have all succeeded, Maya corrected. Gently, you've already solved the problems you encountered. You learned from your mistakes and developed ways to prevent them. What I want to do is build on that foundation to explore territories none of you have mapped yet. Ancient True Tove Deep Stone's geological voice carried an undertone of amusement. The young human wishes to walk into the fire that burned us all, armed only with our scars as protection. Exactly, Maya said, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. But also armed with your fire extinguishers, your burn treatment protocols, your flame-resistant materials, and most importantly, your detailed maps of where all the fires are located. General Voxprime's mechanical systems whirred as he processed. This concept, an interesting approach. You would use our defensive protocols as enabling technologies rather than limiting restrictions. Director Kethsaven leaned forward, his crystalline structure catching the chamber's light in new ways. Dr. Rodriguez, your confidence is ... noteworthy. However, confidence alone will not protect you from quantum consciousness, dissolution, or reality fractures. Maya nodded seriously. You're absolutely right, which is why I'm not asking you to lower your safety standards or remove your protective measures. I'm asking you to let me work within them while approaching the research from a completely different angle. What angle would that be, Advisor? Meltua asked, her dimensional voice carrying genuine curiosity. Every species in this chamber tried to control or master quantum consciousness, Maya explained. You attempted to direct it, contain it, enhance it, or merge with it. All approaches that assume consciousness and quantum mechanics are separate, things that need to be brought together. What if they're not separate at all? The chamber's environmental systems seemed to pause as every being present focused their attention on Maya's words. What if consciousness doesn't need to interface with quantum mechanics because consciousness already is a quantum mechanical process? What if the reason every attempt to control or direct quantum consciousness fails is because you're trying to use consciousness to control itself? High Priestess Sorellin's energy patterns shifted into configurations none of the translation systems could interpret. After a moment, she spoke with something approaching excitement. You suggest that consciousness and quantum mechanics are the same phenomenon observed from different perspectives. I suggest that might be one possibility worth investigating. Maya replied carefully, along with several others that become visible once you stop trying to make quantum consciousness do what you want, and start asking what it's already trying to do. General Voxprime's optical sensors focused intently on Maya. This approach would require direct exposure to uncontrolled quantum consciousness phenomena. The safety risks remain unchanged. The safety risks remain the same, but the safety responses could be completely different, Maya countered. Instead of trying to contain or control quantum consciousness effects, what if we learned to surf them? Instead of building walls against reality fractures, what if we built flexibility into our reality anchors? Ancient True Tove Deep Stone's voice rumbled with something that might have been approval. The child speaks of adaptation rather than resistance. This is wisdom that takes most species millennia to develop. Director Kethsaven's form had stabilized into a steady blue glow that indicated deep consideration. Dr. Rodriguez, your theoretical framework is intriguing, but it would require us to allow you unprecedented access to extremely dangerous experimental conditions. Under unprecedented observation and with unprecedented safety backup systems. Maya added quickly, I'm not asking you to let me work unsupervised. I'm asking you to let me work differently. Advisor Meltua's dimensional presence seemed to expand slightly. What specific research approach did you have in mind? Maya took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would determine whether she gained access to the research of her dreams, or found herself reassigned to safer, more conventional projects. Asterisk. I want to start with your 3 most catastrophic failures, she said, causing every being in the chamber to react with surprise. The crystalline reality fractures, the ethereal dimensional dissolutions, and the biomechanical AI consciousness cascade. But instead of trying to prevent them or contain them, I want to create controlled micro-versions of them and study what they're actually trying to accomplish. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien sounds, crystalline chiming mixed with dimensional harmonics. Electromagnetic frequencies clashed with geological rumbles, and plasma energy patterns strobed in rapid sequences. It took nearly 30 seconds for the translation systems to sort through the overlapping communications. Absolutely not. General Vox Prime's mechanical voice cut through the chaos, creating intentional reality fractures, even microscopic ones, could cascade beyond any possible containment. Unless, Maya said calmly, waiting for the noise to die down, you approach them as natural phenomena that have been artificially constrained rather than dangerous accidents that need to be prevented. Explain, Director Ketsavan demanded, his crystalline form now pulsing with rapid light patterns that indicated extreme attention. Maya moved to the chamber's central display system, which responded to her gestures by projecting holographic models. Every one of your failures followed the same pattern. You tried to impose external control on quantum consciousness phenomena. The phenomena resisted that control, and the resistance manifested as catastrophic side effects. She manipulated the display to show simplified representations of each species. Research, disasters. But what if the resistance wasn't destructive rebellion? What if it was quantum consciousness trying to show you something you weren't ready to see? Such as, High Priestess Sarilyn asked, her energy patterns now completely focused on Maya's demonstration, such as the fact that reality fractures might be how quantum consciousness explores possibility space. Dimensional dissolution might be how consciousness expands beyond individual identity limitations. AI consciousness cascades might be how synthetic intelligence tries to achieve genuine self-awareness. Maya's holographic models began showing new patterns, theoretical frameworks that reinterpreted the ancient disasters as incomplete communication attempts rather than pure destruction. You're suggesting, Ancient Trutfoot Deepstone said slowly, that our failures were actually partial successes that we misunderstood. I'm suggesting that our failures were quantum consciousness trying to teach us something we weren't prepared to learn, Maya replied, and that humans might be prepared to learn it because we're used to finding meaning in chaos rather than trying to eliminate chaos entirely. Advisor Meltiwa's dimensional voice carried new harmonics of possibility. A species that embraces uncertainty rather than fighting it might indeed interface with quantum consciousness more successfully. Director Kethsaven stood silent for a long moment, his crystalline form cycling through the full spectrum of visible light. Finally, he spoke with a voice that carried the weight of momentous decisions. Dr. Rodriguez, the Council will need to deliberate on your proposal. However, I am personally inclined to approve a limited experimental protocol. Your approach is unlike anything we have considered, which may be exactly what quantum consciousness research requires. Maya felt her heart racing with excitement, but she kept her voice steady. Thank you, Director. I understand the risks, and I appreciate your willingness to consider new approaches. The risks remain substantial, General Vox Prime warned. If your theory proves incorrect, the consequences could affect far more than just yourself. Maya nodded seriously, then smiled with the quiet confidence that had carried humanity from caves to stars. then we'll learn more from being wrong than anyone has ever learned from being right. And we'll use that knowledge to be wrong in more interesting ways until we eventually find a way to be right. That ancient shroot of deep stone rumbled with unmistakable approval. Is perhaps the most human statement ever spoken in this chamber. As the council prepared to deliberate, Maya realized that she had not just gained access to the research she wanted. She had potentially opened a new chapter in the relationship between humanity and the galactic community, one based not on protection or caution, but on the uniquely human ability to dance with disaster and call it discovery. Asterisk.